This is the Iron Sharpens Iron Movement, sharing insights into the power of people-centric leading.
Hi, this is Jim, and today we welcome to our tribe a leading authority in culture change programs and an expert at creating high performance, high profile, and best places to work cultures. He is the winner of 5 international Stevie Awards for his training programs and an award-winning author of 6 books. This is Jason Forrest. Iron Sharpens Iron Movement is brought to you by N2 Growth, a leader in executive search, leadership development, and talent management. We find and develop the world's best leaders. Learn more about our practice by visiting us at n2growth.com or click on the link in the show notes of this podcast. Jason, welcome to the Iron Sharpens Iron Movement. We're going to have a good time today. I know already from talking to you in the green room about this is exactly the sweet spot for what our listeners are really thirsty for. And again, thanks for taking the time to spend with our tribe.
Jim, I'm excited to be here. This is gonna be a fun conversation.
It sure is. We're going to dive right into it too. You've written several books, and the show notes will have the links to them and everything, Jason. But one of the things that intrigued me when I started to see this is in almost every one of them, the theme was human performance unleashed. So talk to me a little bit about that, about how you kind of got that saying about you, and from your perspective. I know it's always comes from a little bit of a sales slant, but as we in the Iron Sharpens Iron tribe, always comes back to human-centric leading and all of that, and really around leadership-centric things, no matter what widgets you're doing. So talk to us a little bit about this human performance unleashed perspective.
Sure. So everyone can kind of start their notes with a formula that we created. It's called the performance formula. So performance equals knowledge minus leashes. So performance is what we do. Knowledge is what we've been taught to do. But then we have to minus out the leash. And the leash is, we believe there are 4 types of leashes that I created. So one is a self-image leash. So self-image in the sense of my sense of worthiness, my self-confidence, my self-efficacy. Another type of leash is a story. So, how the politics are going to affect me, how my boss is going to affect me, how the economy is going to affect, how the coronavirus is going to affect. That's a story. The third is a reluctance or fear. So I don't want to come across too pushy, or I'd rather be liked than respected. These are kind of fears that people have. And then the fourth is a rule. And think of a rule as anything I need to see, feel, or hear to give myself permission to engage in whatever knowledge I've been taught. So going back to the concept here, performance equals knowledge minus leashes. So I know that your show is very successful, and so we can put it in kind of simple terms here. So whatever the last episode is that you had a guest on, and they specifically taught specific things to be more successful. So think of that as the knowledge. Okay, whatever it was, that's the knowledge. Well, the question is, did people listen to that podcast, get those 2 or 3 nuggets, and then did that immediately turn into performance? And if the answer was no, well, there was some sort of leash that held people back from executing on what they were taught. And again, that leash was self-image, story, reluctance, or rule. And so that's been really my obsession is I think the unleashing is really where the success lies. So leadership is really around getting people to do the things they don't want to do so they can earn what they want to earn tomorrow. However, the fastest way to do that is, number one, make sure they have the right knowledge, whoever you're working with, your employee you're working with. But the knowledge is the easy part. Again, there's plenty of books out there they can read on being a better communicator or employee or whatever skill or resource you're trying to communicate. But it's really about removing the fear, removing the reluctance, removing the stories that hold people back is what real leadership is about.
Yeah, it's pretty genius, Jason, because one of the things I am guilty of this too, is I think we all baseline on the fact of, okay, yep, you'll have a certain level of knowledge, but it's how you execute it, right? It's a matter of doing it. You're never going to get to that performance level unless you do it. It's the action of actually doing it. But I'm, again, going back to my guilt, I'll go around and I'll spout that off all day long as a leader. Like you have to do these things. Like you can't expect them to happen, but that in air quotes doing is really this unleashing that you're talking about. You've got to address these four kind of points so that people actually do create that action.
That's correct. Yeah. So the simple question. So I have a coaching process that I created. So my background, just so everyone knows, my background's in neurolinguistic programming as one of my main backgrounds. I have over 1,000 hours in NLP, and so NLP is neuro stands for brain, linguistic stands for our speech patterns, and what's been proven by psychology is that the way that we speak is a window into how we think, and how we think is a window into how we feel, and how we feel is a window into why we do what we do, our motivations, which drive our behaviors, which drive our results, right? So as a coach, as a leader, a leader's one of a leader's primary goals is to be that of a programmer of their people. Because again, if we go back to this idea that people's thinking is what drives their feelings, and their feelings is what drives their motivations. Motivation drives their behaviors drive results. Well, so often as a leader, we get so frustrated with people's behaviors, but it's not a behavioral problem; it's a thinking problem. It's a belief problem, right? So
Right.
the reason why we keep getting so frustrated as leadership on, well, why can't I just get this person to change? Well, because you're managing their behaviors versus coaching their thinking and their beliefs.
It is so funny that you say that. I've just recently had a conversation with one of my close friends on this very topic, and he runs an organization, and he's so frustrated with why aren't the people just doing these things? Why aren't they? Why isn't this just a bubbles and rainbows kind of an organization? I can't figure it out. He's actually attacking the entirely wrong subject.
That's correct. Yeah, he's again, and that's why I think it's a good thing to remind ourselves of is are you a manager or are you a coach? And again, sometimes you have to be a manager. A manager
Yep.
is, I'm managing their activities. I'm managing their again. Think of managing as you're managing systems, you're managing processes, you're managing things. Okay, that's that. However, coaching and leadership is around coaching and transforming people's mindset. And it's the mindset that's everything. And again, but let's go back to some of the greatest performance coaches out there. Your Nick Saban, your Pete Carrolls, your Bill Belichick's. I mean, those guys are all mindset junkies, and they're all focused on taking players that are not necessarily the best draft pick on a behavioral standpoint, but they're trying to understand the psychology of the person that they're kind of recruiting, and then they spend a lot of time working on that psychology.
How much has your coaching changed from COVID? So in the past, right, it's a little bit easier if you're in person, you're walking the hallways, you kind of have this more sense of your people and how you can naturally lead. Talk to me about how your perspective and the way that you teach people have changed in this isolated virtual world, or has it?
I mean, I'm sure there are differences. I mean, the big thing about us. So let me tell you about our culture. So we've been able to be a best place to work organization for the last 5 or 6 years in a row, in Fort Worth, Texas, out of 80,000 businesses. At the same time, being one of the fastest growing companies on Inc. magazine for the last 5 or 6 years in a row. But one of the things that I'm a big fan of when it comes to creating like high performance cultures is, one, you have to hire correct. So whenever you're a best place to work, it's normally a hiring award more than anything else. So it's a hiring award, and it's also an expectation award. So like we're
Hmm.
super clear in our interview process what we expect from people, and we're very clear in the, let's say, job contracts that we offer people. So whatever role you come in to work for us, it's crystal clear on, here's what we're going to do for you, and here's what we expect from you. So
Mm.
it's a two-way contract. And then part of my leadership style that I live by, but I also teach in our leadership coaching programs and leadership sales coaching programs, is that you always manage the contract, you don't manage the person.
That's a big statement.
And
That's a big statement.
it's, to me, it's one of the most fundamental principles of great leadership. Because if you think about how many leaders, the reason why they fail, in my opinion, the number one reason why they fail is because they don't hold people accountable, or they don't create accountability, or And that's really because they're afraid of conflict. And their belief system is I choose to be liked versus to lead others. I choose to be liked versus lead others. And so the way I shift people and reframe it for people is to say, look, I don't need you to manage the person. I need you to manage the contract. And as long as you can set that up from the beginning, and meaning like you would say that in the beginning when you hire someone, or when re-up their contracts every year as far as expectations, or every 30 days, or every however often you want to do it. But you tell them, hey, just so you know, like, my goal is I want to have a relationship with you, and if a relationship comes, if we get to know, if I know you personally, that's great. If you know me personally, that's great. But I want you to know, you is that you've signed up to work for me to do the following things, and here's what's expected of you, and here's what I'm going to do in return, and you're going to get an income for that, you're going to get benefits for that, you're going to get bonuses for that. Here's all laid out in the contract. And just so you know, we're going to be constantly evaluating the performance that you're doing compared to what you've signed up for.
So, how do you find the sweet spot of not coming across as a very cold, robotic organization that just is a demand matrix kind of an organization that if you don't hit these goals, you're gone, and everybody's looking around behind their shoulder every 2 seconds? How do you find that sweet spot?
Yep. So my style. So one, I think everyone needs to right now figure out and write this question down. What is my leadership philosophy? What is my leadership philosophy? And so we ask, whenever we teach leadership training, one of the first things a leader has to do is create their philosophy, their manifesto of what kind of leader do they want to be. And it's almost like answering some questions, right? So what do I want people to say about me behind my back? What do I want my boss to say about me as a leader? What do I want my peers to say about me as a leader? What do I want my employees to say about me as a leader? So, like, what am I? I think that's important to kind of figure out that self identity. But the leadership philosophy that I live by, and everyone can just use this as their own, is I call myself a benevolent alpha.
Hmm.
So that's my
Okay.
style. Okay. So that's my style. It's not that doesn't make it work for everyone, but that's my style. So my benevolent alpha means, benevolent is, Jim, I'm going to 100% understand, why did you sign up for this job? What is your end game? What is your goal? What's your 1 year, 2 year, 3 year career path? What's your why? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to do that? Like, what are your goals, right? And why is that important to you? And what really drives you? And I'm going to do everything I can to understand that. That's the benevolent side. And I'm going to give you grace, and I'm going to figure all that out, because I know that you're a human being. You're a human being doing this job, and like, that's great. This is not your job. You're a human being just doing this job. Then the alpha side, though, is, okay, well, I am the leader, and I'm going to call the plays. And my job is to call the plays and give you as much mentorship and guidance and leadership on how to get to whatever goal that is that you have. And so, does that make sense? So it's finding that balance between the two.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Do you find that hard? A lot of times those are natural instincts to certain people. So do you find that hard when you're growing your organization to instill that in others? Because I think a lot of people that are not natural leaders or instinctively are not empathetic, it's very hard for them to say, well, Jason told me, like, I've got to find out what your goals are, and what do you want 2 years from now? But boy, I tell you what, if you don't meet your target by the end of the month, I'm writing you up. That part I'm good at. So, like, how do you now, if you're not the robot, how do you make sure you're careful not creating a legion of robots?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think people are doing the best they can with the resources they have. And the number two is that positive change always comes from adding more resources. So, if you can think of a person right now that's more of a manager than a leader, or a manager than a coach, and it sounds like they're much better at kind of the grit side than they are the grace side, then that's just an area they need to add more resources to, and they need to be trained on why is that important to them. And it's very possible that they're just they're just a victim of their programming, meaning that like
Yeah.
the way that they were kind of managed is how they're managing others. And so we've got one of our programs is called Executive Playbook, and it's about how to create legacy based leadership. And it actually won a Stevie Award a year ago, 2 years ago, for the most innovative leadership program in the world. And so we were
Oh,
really
wow.
trying to like, yeah, we were trying to like kind of disrupt the whole leadership training concept. And so this is my angle that I took, and that is that a leader's success is not measured based on are they hitting their key performance indicators from a results perspective. A leader is actually measured based on how many, number one, self-sufficient employees they created, and number two is how many leaders have they created that can replace them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
That's technically what leadership should be measured by. Not because think about how many people, you might have what I call this Rambo style leadership. So you've got this
Hmm.
Rambo style leadership, which if you have one, director or one boss, let's say in a department, and let's say they've got 15 direct reports. Well, they run it just like Kim Jong Il. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like they're a dictator, and they're also a workaholic, and they're making all the decisions. But their belief system is, I'm the smartest person in the room, and everyone around me is just a bunch of dumb idiots. And and but at the same time, they're also the number one person that when I do coaching with, and I'll say, what's something that you would really like to improve on? Well, I'd like to remove my stress. Well, what's a big cause of your stress? Well, a big cause of my stress is that none of my employees can do anything without my approval.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so suppose I could show you a way to get your people to be more self-sufficient. Would that be beneficial for you? Well, it would, but I'm just telling you, like, that's a long way to go. Okay. Well, we got to change your expectations here, your attitude about it.
Exactly right. It is amazing how many people still kind of don't embrace servant leadership. About how it's just amazing to me about I always tell people the more you practice levels of servant leadership, the more powerful you actually become. The more you give away, meaning teaching others to lead, meaning taking it down, delegating tasks and leadership abilities down, the more powerful in the right kind of power that you become, because it's freeing, right? The power is talk about the freedom to be less stressed, to think more clearly, to do all those kind of things, because you've unleashed the power of others around you. And it's just amazing how many people still don't kind of embrace those ideas and mindsets.
One, I think it's important to clear up the misnomer that people have, or scotoma, blind spot people have with the term servant leadership. Because immediately when someone thinks servant, a lot of times the general population believes that's like subservient, right?
Subservient, yeah.
And that's just not really it at all. And so there, to me, even that kind of benevolent alpha concept, that's why I started seeing that a lot more than even servant leadership, is
Yep.
because it kind of, okay, well, I'm getting now what you're trying to say a lot faster, which is the benevolent side is more like, I truly need to understand, like, what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Let me really help you dial that in. And then the leadership side is, okay, well, let me teach you how to get there, and let me show you how to get there, and let me lead by example on how to get there. And so that's that balance between the two, that I think is so important. And honestly, a lot of people right now should be listening. Are you more on the benevolent side, or are you more on the alpha side?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
Because that's
great
the key,
question.
is to find the balance. And I bet you everyone listening right now can say it's more natural for me to be on one or the other. Okay, well, if it's more natural for you to be on the alpha side, then you just got to learn to develop resources and skills on the benevolent side, and then obviously vice versa.
Have you found, through your years now of going out and training organizations and coaching individuals, have you found that people are just trying to find the quick fix? Or have you found that the majority of people that approach you are truly opening themselves up to, being able to accept themselves, to unleash their human performance and psychology, to really do those things that you talked about subtracting the leashes that have held on to them? What's the average person? What's your feel out there, Jason? Like, is it truly sincere that people are wanting to learn the right ways to treat other humans, or is there a selfish driven agenda behind it too?
It's a good question. I mean, the nice thing about it is every single day. I mean, all of the stuff that we teach now. I mean, it's becoming more and more popular, which is really great. For a long time, it was this whole like psychological stuff was like so woo woo and so like
Yeah.
vulnerable, and so that it just wasn't that kind of popular. But it's become a lot more popular. So like, for example, like there's not a major sports team out there, a professional sports team out there that doesn't have a sports psychologist.
Correct.
And so everything that I teach, for example, is 100% synonymous with what a sports psychologist would do to work with the mental toughness of an athlete. And so, I mean, it's all the same thing. I mean, even all of my certifications and backgrounds, like one of it's accelerate evolution, and even that. I mean, there's plenty of people that have a background in NLP. So every sports psychologist probably has some sort of background in either NLP or AE or one of these other strategic intervention, one of these certifications that I have. And so now we're just kind of bringing that same thing into the mainstream business world, knowing that you're really like a corporate athlete,
I was going
and
to
a
say
corporate,
that word.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
That's right.
So that's the shift that people need to have. It's like, so one of my backgrounds is in addiction counseling, which is a long, long, long story in itself. But one of the things that we say in addiction counseling is it's never a drinking problem; it's always a thinking problem. And so you're not addicted to your drinking; you're addicted to your thinking. And so, but the same connection happens with whatever self-sabotaging habit is happening in the workplace. Is we have to figure out, okay, well, they're currently addicted to that self-sabotaging habit, and it might be like showing up late consistently, and really you have to look at the whole thing. Like, so let's say all of a sudden you've got John Smith, who just for some reason has a pattern of showing up late. Okay, but
Yep.
you say, okay, well, suppose I could strip away the showing up late thing. Like, like, how good of an employee would he be then? And someone says, well, his work is phenomenal. It's just, it's just a huge distraction because he keeps showing up late. And what is that causing? Well, that's causing other employees to disrespect him and to not take him seriously anymore. Okay. But if we removed all of that, you're saying that you actually think his work is great. I think his work is impeccable. Okay. So you see, like, that to me is an interesting kind of case study, because like in that case, everything is great except for this one thing. But for some reason he has a consistent self-sabotaging behavior. He's addicted to kind of his routine of showing up late. So if I can go in there and kind of unravel all of that and kind of put him on a different path, then it sounds like he'd be up for a promotion soon.
Hmm. And do you
To get
find?
fired. Like, one
Yeah,
person's about to get
exactly.
fired, and you know what I mean? I can like switch one little thing, untie one little knot, and immediately now he's getting promoted.
Do you see that light bulb going off on a lot of senior executives when you start kind of talking about this high performance thing? If all things being the same, if you've got a near peer competitor, and these two organizations have about the same amount of people with the same amount of education and experiences and training, the difference between the two are mostly the things that you're talking about, right? About unlocking their mental programming, about unlocking this mindset, and that's the differentiator between the two organizations. At the end of the day, is about really knocking down these roadblocks to make them have that performance level at a different level, since everything else is about the same.
Everything else is about the same, right? Because again, I mean, you don't even need formal education anymore, because I mean, all of the best ways to run a business and to be successful are all on podcasts now, and books and audible book. You know what I mean? So it's really, the knowledge is not the issue anymore. We've got all the knowledge that a person needs to have in order to be a contributing citizen in their organization to drive profitability, right? So we don't have a problem with that. We have a problem is what stops people from executing, and so that's a really good coaching question, by the way, that I always teach is, whenever you so going back, our coaching model is, um, it's technically 4 stages, but I'll get right into the actual coaching session itself. So in the coaching session, it's pre-frame, what, how, validate, believe, will, win, celebrate. So that's the 8 steps. So
Mm.
pre-frame is, suppose I could show you a way to do blank. Would you be interested in hearing about it? Yeah, that would be great. Okay. Well, here's what I need you to focus on. Here's what I need you to learn. Here's the skill we need to work on. Okay. Um, how is here's the process. Here's how you're going to do it going forward. Okay. So we can collaborate on the how, whatever that is, and then validate. I believe that when you do this, you're going to have blank success, which will lead to your stated outcome or goal of blank. Okay. So that's the knowledge piece. Then we have the 4 steps of removing the leashes, and that's believe, will, win, celebrate. So, so do you believe that this is the right strategy? Do you believe that you're capable of doing this? Are you excited about doing this? That's believe. And then believe will. So will you do this? Which, by the way, is a crazy question to ask, but so many coaches don't ask that question.
True. Yep. That's valid.
So they just, so it's like a salesperson not asking for the order, right? It's the same thing. It's a leader doesn't say, so like we just, in our mind, we think, okay, well, we've talked about it and it seemed like they were on board with it. Yeah. But we never actually said though, will you do this? And when will you do this? And when can we follow up with it again? Like that's the whole accountability piece.
So when you do that, one of your earlier books was entitled "Why Training Fails." Did you in that book discover these things, which then shapes how you would have these coaching conversations to drive people to a different level of expectations? Are they tied together?
Somewhat. So if you think of my coaching philosophy is more like the individual person. So if I'm going to coach, I'm going to kind of work with their individual skills and their individual beliefs. Okay, so that's more of the coaching one-on-one conversation. Is what are the skill resources that you need in order to get to where you need to go, and then what's the mental challenges that are holding you back from it. So again, stories, reluctances, rules, self-image, right? Okay. Now, from the training perspective, that's more like an OD thing. So that's like, what are the levers that need to happen from a culture perspective in order to kind of make that behavior stick? So how do we make sure that the compensation is aligned, the rewards in line, there's career advancement opportunities? How do we make sure that there's positive social pressure from peers to reinforce the right behavior? How do we make sure that the right people are, they're reporting to the right people? I mean, so it's more of like the reason why training fails. And so 106, by the way, the stat is 164 billion is spent every year on training, and 70% of that 164 billion fails to achieve an ROI.
Wow.
So I
That's
became
staggering.
obsessed with, how do we, what's the formula to be in the 30%? Like, who are all these 30%ers and how do we do that? Right. And so, and that's where it came into a lot of things. So it's, you've got to have the right, again, the right personal motivation, personal resources, social pressure, compensation. I mean, all these different kind of factors all have to be connected to it.
That makes sense. And there's a little bit of that common theme that you've got going on here about, the right set of expectations and the right set of friction, that positive friction that happens that allows everything to move forward and to build off of itself and everything. So Jason, I want to, with our time remaining, I want to kind of get into the new book that you got there, The Mindset of a Sales Warrior. And two things I want to ask about. One, we talked about a little bit in the green room. You're surprised by who actually is purchasing the book, and I'd love for you to talk about that in a second. But the first thing I want to talk about is throughout a lot of your literature and your talks that you've had in the past and written here is the word warrior, about how you have this warrior mindset and mindset of a sales warrior. Talk to me a little bit about where did you get the idea to kind of bring in this warrior connotation about things?
Well, first off, just to because there is already a kind of there's a leash sometimes when I even use the word warrior, right? And so,
yeah.
But if you were to think of what's the one airline that has been the most profitable, most successful airline of all times, who is that airline?
Southwest.
Yep. And one of their core values is a warrior spirit.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone just right now, just think about that for a second. Okay. So and they're rated as the best place to work in the world and most
Yep.
profitable and so forth. And again, one of their core values is a warrior spirit. It's like warrior spirit and like have fun. Or I think it's like the two things. It's like what it is.
Yeah.
It is. But
Yeah.
so, but anyway, the idea behind a warrior is a frontliner. You know, it's a warrior is when the building is burning down, the warrior is the first responder that's running towards the fire. Okay, is putting everything on the line. You know, believes so much in kind of this cause and believes so much in something kind of bigger than themselves that they're willing to kind of like put everything on the line. Like that's the warrior. And in my belief system is we all have a warrior spirit within us. So anyone who's ever failed a test in school and then all of a sudden turned it around and got an A in the next one, well, that was a warrior spirit. And anytime that you know you overcame any kind of adversity, any mother out there that had a child and experienced labor pains, that was obviously a warrior spirit, a warrior moment, right? We all have warriors in us. And so the idea behind a warrior is a warrior is always kind of dialing in their mindset, their process, their language, their communication skills, and they're always just kind of like pushing the edge. Again, why? Because they need to be the protector of the people. And so like from a sales perspective, the reason why I call it warrior selling is because a warrior is protecting the customer from the con artists that are out there that are
Mm.
trying to convince them to do something that's going to harm them. So a warrior is really a protector. A warrior is also a protector of the customer's brand. So think about how many salespeople would gladly just throw things in, lowering the profit margins. They have no problem kind of bashing their own company brand and
Huh.
yeah, I don't know why my company does it that way. And it's just it is what it is. Like that's
Yep.
not a warrior, right? A warrior again believes so much in their clan, so much in their like the
Yeah.
samurai, right? They believe in their house, and so that's the idea of the warrior.
I can visualize it right now, Jason. See, you're integrating like a story into my head. You're already getting into my head about this. I love it. I love it. I
Wouldn't you
love it.
want that, Jim? Wouldn't you
That's right.
want
That's
a
exactly
team of
right.
warriors representing your company?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. I mean, like, it's kind of funny from a leadership position, that's who you dream of, right? That's who you think your team is. But a lot of times, right, you get blindsided by, yeah, I heard them bashing about the company, or yeah, they throw in 42 things, which kills the margin. Why are we even doing it at this point? All of those kind of things happen pretty often in certain situations. And it's a
Yeah.
sad,
So my
sad
my
state of
belief
affairs.
system
Yeah.
is my belief system is the salesperson that's doing that is a warrior. They're just a warrior for the competition. So,
That's true.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're
Wrong
trying to like
uniform.
they're like it's like friendly fire, right? They're just like trying to
Exactly
take you
right.
down from the inside.
Too funny. And so I teed this up a couple minutes ago. You're really surprised by who's buying this book. Talk to me a little bit about what you've started to discover on who the main purchaser of the mindset of a sales warrior is.
Yeah. So again, I'm always trying to dial in three things, right? So mindset, process, language. Well, this book is to address the mindset side, which is those leashes, those four types of leashes: stories, self-image, reluctances, and rules. And it's basically everything I know about what are the kind of 42 strategies. So it's 42 strategies on how to, again, be unleashed. So it's 42 strategies on how to remove the stories, self-image, reluctances, and rules that hold salespeople back from earning what they're truly worth. Well, originally it was written for salespeople. However, the people who seem to be buying it the most right now are sales managers, and it was listed in 2019 as the best new sales book in the world. So it won an award for
Awesome.
that, which was great. But sales managers and company owners and entrepreneurs, they're actually buying this book and they're using it as a coaching guide. Because it's even kind of written that way if you think about it. Because what I wrote it is 42 like standalone strategies on, here's a leash that I have, and then what's a strategy on how to overcome it. And so a manager, an entrepreneur, an owner is using it as like that field manual on, okay, well, I'm going to kind of find, like a reference guide of what's something that I have a salesperson in front of me, and what are they struggling with the most? And then how can I use one of these strategies in here to coach them through it? And that's really what the book is.
I love it. And, again, it seems like everybody's in search of answers, and they get frustrated in how can they help their teams and all of that. And what a great gift that you're able to give people is to say that no matter where you are, whether you're that frontline warrior as a salesperson or their manager leader, that they're able to read something like this and get something out of it and have a common language to talk amongst themselves about it to solve the problem.
You're correct. And actually, it's actually a great like co-creation tool as well. So for example,
Yeah.
a sales manager can let's say they have a team of 10 or 15 salespeople. Well, they can all kind of like go through it together, right? Or the salesperson can say, okay, well, what strategy do I want to be held accountable to the most? Like where is my biggest kind of mental resistance coming from? And then again, they can kind of like co-create it and collaborate through it.
No, I love it, Jason. I think these are the types of things that and you don't have to be. This is another thing, I guess I'd love your opinion on too. But is it truly just for salespeople? What if I've got someone that is the chief people officer of an organization? Can they read the book and get just as much out of it?
They can. I mean, so what I basically did, just like a lot of probably authors do, is so I'm an avid reader, right? And so I'm constantly finding, okay, what are all the mental toughness books out there? What are all the leading edge books? Like, Carol Dweck's book on mindset and Daniel Coyle's book on talent code and kind of all of these like Tony Robbins books, all these kind of great books. Well, all of those books, this is almost the way that you should look at the book, is that it's like I read 42, and I really basically did more than 42 of these kind of like big self-help psychological books out there. And then I took what was like the main principle in that book and then applied it specifically to sales. So you could look at it like that. You could look at it as, instead of having to read 42 individual books, this is like the executive summary of 42, like the kind of the nuggets of of those 42 books.
Yeah, love it. I love it. Well, Jason, I tell you, I think you've whetted everybody's appetite here with the type of warrior mindset that you have yourself, and being able to really tell us a little bit about your perspective on really unleashing human performance, and using that leash analogy, for me at least, means a lot. It kind of connects the dot on going back to how I started this about, I'm a big action guy and I expect people to do so that they can perform because I know they've got the right knowledge, but it's these leashes that are still holding them. And for you to help identify what those are, I think are going to take us to a higher level all the time. So thanks for making us high performers. Thanks for bringing out the warrior in all of us. And we appreciate the conversation, Jason.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining our leadership movement this week. Talking to Jason about the warrior in all of us as it pertains to leadership inspired me to want to learn more about unleashing myself. So don't forget, those show notes are posted on the website with key leader takeaways. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast and tell a friend so that we can continue to build the tribe. Until next time, remember that iron sharpens iron. Make yourself and others around you better every single day.